Hi there, and welcome to How To with Ann Malum. When deciding to do this podcast, I really wanted to create something that could give people real tools on how to execute on certain things. So often we talk about things on such a macro scale that, yes, leaves people inspired, but with no real idea on what the steps are to make something in their own life happen. I challenge and encourage and probe my amazing guests to get granular and specific on their strategies, their mindset, their tactics, and their methodologies so that you can learn practical, actionable steps to best optimize your confidence, career, health, and wealth. Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome to How To with Ann Malum. We are thrilled to have Allison Maslan today. Her how-to is how to multiply your growth, impact, and profits. A little bit about Allison. She is the CEO of Pinnacle Global Network and is the Wall Street Journal bestselling author of Scale or Fail. She was recently named one of the top 10 entrepreneurial women to watch in 2023 by Forbes magazine. Allison has built 10 successful companies over the last 40 years. Don't know how that's possible. She looks in her 30s. Her client list has included Ben & Jerry's, Supercuts, Merrill Lynch, and Allstate. Allison and her team of business mentors have helped over 150,000 founders scale their businesses, fast-track their success, and create more meaningful lives through her company, Pinnacle Global Network, one of Inc. 5000's fastest-growing private companies. Allison, welcome.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, let's just dive in. If you can help our listeners understand a little bit about you and your background, and then we'll dive in to get real specific on how to help people do what you help people do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in a very entrepreneurial family. And so I heard from my dad, he would always say, if you want something, go create it yourself. So I started my first business when I was 19. And so over 40 years, that's 10 companies. And really, it was just about figuring out what my passion was. And I've been following that. And, I've had lots of different passions in my life. And then every one of them evolved into a business. I think the biggest thing for me was really learning how to scale, because that's something I didn't know early on. And that really hindered me a lot, just about fell apart from the stress of it all.
Mm-hmm.
So I really have been on a mission to show business owners that it is actually easier to grow a much bigger company than being that solo entrepreneur or that business owner with a small team trying to do it themselves.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir there. I've always felt that way, and I've loved scaling. And it's exactly right. And the more that you scale, like we're sitting here today, and Solid Core has 90 plus locations, and there are 90 classes going on, and I'm not teaching one of them. I get to sit here and talk with you. So yeah, the scaling piece is amazing, and also helps you to step back and empower people. Well, let's talk a little bit about the early days, Allison, of how you came to realize that. What were these businesses that you were running when it was a smaller team, or you felt like, oh my gosh, I can't sort of live in this space forever, and when you realized you had to learn how to figure that out?
Yeah, so I built a full service advertising and PR firm by the time I was 25. And I was, I was kind of making it up along the way, like we do in the early days, kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But we were great at helping clients to market their business. And I had clients like Ben & Jerry's and Supercuts and Allstate, even for the Olympics when they came to Los Angeles way back when. And I was that control freak. And even though I had the small team, I thought that I had to be all, do all, have my hands in everything. And I was completely burned out and depressed and exhausted and, trying to raise my daughter, who was under 2 years old at the time. And I ended up having a terrible car accident just from the exhaustion and not really being present. And I almost didn't make it. And so that I obviously did because I'm here, but that was a massive wake-up call for me to say, wow, if this is success, I don't want it like this.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really knew I've got to figure out, how are my clients like Ben & Jerry's or Supercuts with thousands of employees? How is it that the CEO is not in there in the day to day? How, what are the systems and processes they have in place? What are the strategies they are utilizing to scale? And then, really made it my mission to help others do the same.
So what did you learn? What are those strategies and systems? So let's just dive in example wise, right? Let's say you're talking to me and we met and I had 3 solid core locations. What are those first things that you tell people? I'm sure it's department like people, technologies, systems. I mean, I'm sure there's so much, but I would love to hear you try to break it down here.
Yeah, well, I back up just a little bit first, because anybody listening here, if you are still, even if you have a team, but you're still delivering the products or services, like if you were still teaching classes, even though you had a team, you are choking the growth of your business. And I'd say the thing that is the most challenging for business owners is letting go. It's the hardest thing is to let go. If you are the CPA and you have other CPAs, but you're still seeing clients about their taxes, you cannot really be the CEO working on the business and do it well. So that's the first shift that has to happen. You have to let go of that book of business and give it to your team, whether it's franchise, subscription, whatever your scalable model is.
Then, is there even a point before that, Allison, of choosing the business, of making sure you're going into something and asking, is this scalable?
Yes. And if it's not scalable, what can we do to make it scalable, right? So it's not scalable if the business cannot operate around you. I would say that every business has a possibility to scale. You just have to expand into a more scalable model. Where can you create that monthly recurring revenue? Scaling really is replication and multiplication. How do we take your product or your service and replicate it beyond you so that you can multiply it, hundreds, thousands of and millions of times?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I'll just give a quick example for folks. One of my best friends is a dermatologist, and her schedule, and she has her own practice, and her schedule is packed. People want Agnes. I want her. I don't want someone else, giving me my Botox, or checking my skin or whatever. I want her. And she has found it very difficult to scale because she continues to want to satisfy these clients who want to see her, and she's running the business. And, it's a lot. My boyfriend is a life coach. Same thing. He's sort of in this, people want to work with Brett. And I think it's not everybody has to want to scale, Allison, but it's asking that question of, okay, whatever business you're starting, think about what your day-to-day is, and you need to fall in love with that. Because if you don't love seeing patients every day, but you want to have your own dermatology business, you've got to figure out a way to have the other doctors be so great that your customers are excited to do that while you're doing the business development. If you love coaching, but you don't want to manage people or business development, you got to hire someone to do all of that work, so you're not having to do all of it and finding that you can only, again, so many hours in a day, right, to figure out, I can only coach so many people and then grow my business, work on the website, work on the podcast, work on this thing. So I think that actually is really interesting, just from a start standpoint of, one, can your business scale, and what does that look like? And do you want it to scale? And what does that mean for your role on a day-to-day basis in that business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is, what is your end goal? When I started this business, Pinnacle Global Network, and we mentor business owners all over the world to grow and scale their business, I was doing the mentoring in the beginning because I'm really, working and ironing out the things, the strategies, and really getting the systems in place. But I wanted to reach millions of business owners with what we do. And so now we have 30 mentors that have all built multi-million-dollar companies that work with our clients. And like you, we've got hundreds of sessions that are going on, all of the time. But they're following our method. Just like in your business, I'm sure you have a particular method. So you don't have your team going rogue and just saying, I feel like doing this today. They have we call it the scale it method. So it's a real systematic process, and it works on any type of industry or any type of business model. So that is really important. Now, I could have just said, like you said, could have said, you know what, I really don't want to scale the business. I just want to see, that book of clients. Yeah. But I just know that when you're trading time for dollars, when you go on vacation, when you do want to step away or you go to sleep, the buck stops there. There is no revenue that you're generating. It literally stops there. And so, I love the fact that, I live part-time in Zihuatanejo, Mexico. That's where I am coming
amazing
right now. And, our headquarters is based in San Diego. We have team all over the country. But I'm not in the day-to-day of the business, but I'm able to actually be a better CEO because I'm in a place where I can come up with the best ideas, be more strategic, have the energy to do it rather than being in the thick of the business.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. So I got us off track. Let's go back to, let's just use a coffee shop owner, right? So I'm a coffee shop owner. I've got, 2 to 5 locations. What are some of those things that you start to look in at my business to say, these things are set up to scale and these things aren't, and what do we need to do?
Well, there's a lot of different ways that you can scale within the coffee shop. So one model is that you just keep replicating and you open a lot more coffee shops, different locations. Now, to do that, you have to make sure that you've got your systems in place because you're in a place that you just replicate. So, for instance, Charlotte Russe, the clothing company, I used to market them a gazillion years ago, but they had their one location for quite a long time till they really got the systems down. Everything was turnkey. So then when they multiplied to, over 400 locations, they knew exactly what they needed to do when they were, farming out their location and hiring their team and so forth. So that's one way, is multiple locations. The other is that you could, with your products, for instance, if you make your own special coffee that is your own special recipe, then you can create a subscription program around that. That's a great way to build a loyal following and have that recurring revenue. You can also wholesale your coffee and have distributors and have it in other coffee shops. You can, like Starbucks has gone into grocery stores. And so that's another way for them actually was a super smart move for them because the people are already there grocery shopping. So they're tapping into somebody else's loyal following.
Yeah.
Right. So there's numerous ways within the way to do it, and then of course you have your products in your coffee shop that people just buy as a one-off as well.
And what do you think stands in people's way? I think you alluded to it earlier, but is it that the founder, the CEO just can't give enough of a rope to the team members? When you see someone who says they want to grow and scale, but they don't, what is the thing? What do you see as the common denominators there?
Well, if you're still in the weeds of the business and you're micromanaging everything like so many business owners do, just because that's what they did when they started. Mm-hmm. We're creatures of habit and we do what we know. There's never enough time in the day to get those things done. So even though they want to do it, they just fall back into what they know. And that's why it's super important to, get the support, be around other business owners that are doing those things. I mean, how are you going to know how to do it if you haven't done it before? We are usually really what's in our own way. The other piece of it is that, we have the mindset, oh, well, it can happen for other people, not for us. Their fear comes up and so forth. But if you're not willing to get out of the comfort zone and try these things, then you will stay stuck.
So is that a lot of the work that you do with people, is really just getting into their psyche and helping them learn to either let go or assess the people around them? Do you trust the people around them? Are they competent? What is the psyche of you not letting go?
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 pillars that we work with business owners in the Scale It method. So, and it's the S in scale, which is strategic vision. First, you have to know exactly where you're going. And it is the piece of business that most business owners spend the least amount of time on, and it is the most important part. So we help our business owners live in vision.
Okay.
Truly a vision-led company. Then the C in scale is cash flow. So the oxygen of your business driven by marketing, sales, and your scalable model, right? Your multiplier. The A in scale is alliance of the team. You have to, just having a team, okay, but you can have a team living in chaos, or you can have a team living in vision. So they have to be aligned with your vision. The L in scale is leadership. And that's where the mindset piece is, what we were talking about a second ago. Leadership is all about how you show up, how you communicate, how you raise the vibe of your team, and how you lead the vision. And a lot of that is your mindset. What's going on inside of you, the good days, the bad days, how you're able to show up, how you're able to not focus on what's going wrong, right, and go create opportunity. And then the E is execution. How is everything rolling out? What are your KPIs? What's that one metric per department that you and your team are focused on? Where's the accountability? So all of those things really work together.
And do you find that people are mainly good at a couple of these, but not others, or the whole thing, or what is sort of, just curious on what you see a lot of?
Yeah, I mean, if you think of a pillar, right? A pillar is something that has to be really strong because it's holding something heavy, like a pandemic or an unstable economy, right?
Yeah.
So these 5 pillars need to get shored up to get to the next level. But most business owners, I would say, some of them are missing a couple of them altogether, or, they might be strong in a couple, but the others are a little bit shaky. And they're going to change, like your needs for team are different as a startup than they are in, later on in business. We have 5 phases of scaling a business. So phase 1, your team needs are very different than phase 4 or 5. Your cash flow needs are different. But because we're creatures of habit, we tend to try to just drag the same strategies all the way up here when you actually have to recreate the business. It has to evolve and change, and you've got to really restructure it as you get to this higher level to make room for growth.
Yeah. And what type of businesses do you guys work with, Allison? Is it all different levels of people who got a couple $100,000 in revenue, $1 million, or do you have a certain sweet spot?
We generally work with business owners in the 7, 8, and 9 figures of their business that are ready to scale. And, we really help them to build that team managed company to get out of their own way, like what we've talked about, and expand into that more scalable model. And it's really cool because just like you have, all of a sudden they're going, oh my gosh, this business is running and I'm, not even there. And it's an amazing feeling, but you see the business growing a lot faster. It's kind of counterintuitive, but we work with all different industries, all different industries, all different business models. And that's really one of our superpowers, I would say, is because we offer one-on-one mentoring with a multi-million-dollar CEO, but we also have a community that it has so many different industries so that you are not learning the things that everyone else is doing in your industry. You really want to surround yourself with people in the beauty industry and the tire industry and the engineering and, and the staffing companies to apply some of those strategies to your business so you stand apart.
Yeah, I highly believe in just not only physical diversification around a table, but diversification from business acumen. At Solid Core, we just hired, our COO, and she comes from years of experience in the jewelry business. She's worked at Zales, and it's just like, we didn't want somebody. We felt if we hire somebody in the boutique fitness business, we're sort of killing it in that game. And we're like, we know all that we can know in this business. We feel pretty good. What don't we know? we need to look outside and see how other businesses are growing, scaling sales, marketing campaigns so that we can, learn and have a different way of thinking. It's super valuable. And one of the things that you said, so I've been a founder a couple of times, and the founder syndrome really is a real thing because it is an emotional experience for anybody out there who has started a business. My entrepreneurial effort around back on my feet, it took me 6 months, Allison, I knew it was time to go. I knew that I wanted to start something else. I felt like there was stability. I built a board, I had a team, and it was like, I don't even know if I'm the best person to continue to run back on my feet because I love the beginning stages and scaling this way. And what this organization needed was vertical growth. And I'm like, I just don't think I'm good at that. And it doesn't excite me. But I was so petrified of feeling like, gosh, what if my next thing doesn't work? How do I top this? I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. What if people don't think I'm special? Like there's just all of this fear and your identity wrapped up in this thing that you've given blood, sweat, tears, and all of your time to for 6.5 years of my life. And you're sort of like, who am I without this thing? Yeah. So the emotions are really real.
Yeah, no, I've been there. I've sold 4 companies. And it is scary to let go. It becomes such a big part of your identity. But, the key really is, and in your heart when it's time, there's just this feeling like, hey, I'm ready to move on. Like you just don't have the energy to give what it needs to get to that next level. And that's right. Why companies like, I've interviewed founders of, Dry Bar, Shellac Nails, they bring in a CEO to take it to the next level. Mm-hmm. But before you can do that, you really, and we call this phase 5 in the Scale It method, is that you have a company that doesn't depend on you. Mm-hmm. Then you have choices. So you can bring in a CEO and become the chairman of the board, or you can sell the company, or you can pass it on to your children, or you could stay on and scale up if you want to. It just, you have that freedom of choice. But it's so important that you really, I think, start from the beginning of that mindset of how do I replace myself?
Yep. And I try to teach my team members, I try to, get specific and say, guys, here's your list of responsibilities, that you're starting with for the year, and the list of responsibilities of the folks that report into you. If this list is the exact same a year from now, we're failing as a company, we're failing as leaders because you're not teaching and delegating and no one is rising, no one's learning, no one's growing. And a lot of people, leaders, I see it all the time, they hang on to that list, Allison, because that's their job security. And if no one else knows how to do this thing, and again, they feel special, oh my gosh, we need so-and-so here, they're the only ones who know how to do that. It's really an irresponsible decision for that person and for the company. Great leaders sit there and say, okay, my job should look, to talk about your strategic vision. What does your role look like in 3 years? And then work backwards from that goal and break it down of, okay, every quarter I need to check in and make sure that I have the right team members and that they are delegated these responsibilities and having some freedom to make having agency to make decisions over these things, so that I can get comfortable of no longer need to be involved in X decision. And I can specifically remember when I hired my COO, who's now the CEO of Solidcore. He's unbelievable, great, very talented intellectual. And I was involved at everything with Solidcore. And I remember the day when he told us we were opening in Seattle. And I'm like, we're opening in Seattle? Or someone else told me. And it was just like, yeah, makes sense. Like, I don't need to be involved in where we pick our markets. Like, we have a formula, we have data, the team knows what they're doing. Like, makes sense that I didn't know that. So it's just fun to see those little moments.
Yeah. Or when, you're doing Zoom and there's people on there from your team and you've never met them and you're wondering what position that they're in because you had absolutely nothing to do with hiring them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a cool feeling for sure, but it is hard to find people in the succession planning piece. We raised money in the beginning of 2021. And I was really clear with our private equity partners at that time of, I don't want to be the CEO much longer. And I have somebody who's great, and you guys need to buy into this company knowing that this individual is going to step up. Because what also happens, Allison, and I'm sure you can speak to this even more than I can after selling 4 companies, usually people who buy your companies, if things are working and there's been nobody else to run them besides you, they don't want to let you go. And the sale of that company can be really contingent on you sticking around to ensure the success is almost, the risk-averse success that is there, you're attached to it. So it's another reason for you to free yourself and have the freedom to be like, great, I sold my company and I don't have to go with on the next 2 to 3 year journey to get my payout here.
100%, because they want to know that the money's going to continue to come in and it's not going to all fall apart when you leave, or that everybody's just so tied to you that they're not going to, they're going to lose trust in the next evolution of the business. So that really is key.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the key things here that you do or your theory and methodology. So you say that the strategy to get you to $1 million won't get you to 10, and the strategy to get you to 10 won't get you to 50 or 100. Can you talk about like what will help people actually get to those levels?
Yeah, I think the first thing is the awareness of where they're at. Most people are reaching for something and they have to understand where they're at. And that's why we came up with these 5 phases of scaling. So I could just go through those really quickly. And I think people that will be listening will be able to identify, oh, that's me. And then, let's look at the gaps of where you are to that next level. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Okay, so phase 1, I call the seeker, and that's the startup. You're passionate, you're excited, you're putting this new idea out into the world, and there's no scaling happening there because it's you and, maybe a business partner. Then you move on to phase 2, which I call the pioneer, and this is when you bring on a few hires and you're getting more clear about your ideal target market. You are really ironing out your customer journey. You are, your product and services selling. You're well into the 6 figures of your business by now. But you still are that control freak. You're needing to approve everything going in and out of your business. So you are the bottleneck. Now, if you are beginning to move past that, what's happening is that you're having a demand for your product or service. You need to start filling positions. And one of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're hiring is that they hire before they're really clear on what does the success look like for this role. And if you don't have that down to the dollar and understanding the benchmarks, how do we value success for this position, then you don't really know what the expectations are, and your hire doesn't know what the expectations are. And so, oftentimes this can fail. And so you start to grow, but you often have people in the wrong roles. You're getting pulled into weeds because things start slipping through the cracks. You are moving to what I call phase 3, and phase 3 is called the ringleader. We call it the ringleader because it's a bit of a circus in phase 3. Now, there's a lot of good things happening as well. You're getting more clear on what your vision is. You see the capacity of the potential of what you can create. You're having regular meetings. You're getting systems and processes in place. But because you often don't have the right people in the right positions, or you're, instead of hire slow, fire fast, you're hiring fast and firing slow, keeping
I've done that
on, right? You get sucked back into the weeds. And this is where I think millions of business owners live. And you become addicted to the rescue, and you are living on that hamster wheel.
So their identity becomes, this thing can't work without me. I am the savior.
Yes. The ego gets in the way, and it's all about, it has to be me. So like your friend, that I'm not saying, that she has an ego problem, but her identity is that she is the one helping the customers. The shift that has to start happening here, and this is so important, is that you have to stop saying I, and you have to say my team. My team is this, my team is this, my team is this, and literally put the team before you. So when our CEOs come in from all over the world, they're not looking to work with Allison. They are really excited to work with our multi-million-dollar CEOs because they are so incredible. So we edify them all of the time. And so there never is that feeling like, they're going to need me. And so now here's the other thing. It's how you lead that gets you from phase 3 to phase 4. So if I'm a top-down company or even bottom-up, I'm still going to have leadership issues. What I feel you really need is a horizontal company. And that means that you're building a company based on collaboration. So the team is actually working with you to build the company. And that can start with just shifting the way you lead. Instead of always giving the answer, it would be, well, what would you do in that situation? How would you handle that? Or why don't you put a plan together and present it in the meeting and get the team's buy-in? And when you start to empower people like that, then you're going to see these leaders emerging within your company, and they're going to begin taking ownership. And this is when you can start slowly stepping back. But you can have confidence because if you are really leading with vision, that strategic vision pillar, your values, that vision is so entrenched in the company that it's like you're there even when you're not there, because they've heard it so much, it becomes part of the lingo, becomes part of the language. And so you start attracting people that have those similar values. And, because you've empowered them now and they feel like that they own that part of whatever their special superpower is, then you are no longer the decision maker, the rainmaker, the everything maker. And so you have now an empowered team. They are working together to come up with solutions, ideas, opportunities, and so forth. Like we just had our team here last week for our leadership retreat. We had the leaders in our company. We had close to 20 team members here and really laying out the vision for the whole year. But it really had zero to do with what Allison was going to be doing. It's what they were going to be doing and finding the solutions for, and who was going to hold who accountable, and when was it going to be done by, and so forth. So we have a rock solid plan for the year, and that's when then you move into phase 5. Phase 4 is the co-creator, like I said, collaborative company. Phase 5 is what I call the visionary, and this is where the company really is running without you, but you can be in that place of inspiration and creativity. Well, I love to live. And, this is where I really, and why I'm here in Mexico, because this is where I get all my breakthroughs. This is where I have the space to think and get re-inspired about everything that we're doing.
Yeah, those are great. I think I missed. So it was seeker, ringleader. Did I miss 2 or 3? Then I have
seeker and then pioneer.
Okay, I missed pioneer. Seeker, pioneer, ringleader, co-creator, visionary.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the visionary space too, and I get to sit as the exec chair of Solid Core now. So I love it. It is inspiration, and then I get to sit and do the strategic stuff. And Allison, I'm starting a new business, so I'm like back in the throes of the beginning stages.
Yeah.
And it is, and one of the things for me with this go around, even though it's in the same space, I was like, my challenge for myself is, and my boyfriend actually coined this term, and it was a really good analogy. I'm used to being the quarterbacks in the beginning stages of companies. I am in the throes of it. And I am really pushing myself to be the coach from the very get-go, and having other people like really be empowered, really like macro manage. And of course, a lot of that goes into hiring the right people. And I'm just so much smarter after making so many mistakes the first go around in a fitness business. and knowing what goes into getting these things open, because it's also brick and mortar. But it's like, how do I level up so that I don't have to go another 7 years of being the CEO? I want a CEO running this company by the end of this year, so that I took my 7-year stint down to a year. And then I can say, oh, I'm just going to get in this creating and starting companies because that's what I love. But I don't like the weeds and operations and building out the processes and all of those things. It's really draining for me. So it's like, yes, I'm going back to the beginning, but I'm testing myself to see if I can do it in a way where I can just constantly create multiple businesses and bring in the team sooner to run them.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what I've loved throughout my life, is being able to go and start these new businesses. And I mean, people always ask me, what are you going to do? At this point, I feel like Pinnacle Global Network is my legacy business. I get to give back and teach others what I've learned all along the way, and now have a team that's able to do that. So, I think at some point, do I want to sell this? Well, maybe, but what am I going to do after that? I'm going to launch another business, because this is business 10.
Yeah.
And now I love it because I can help other people realize their dreams. But when you have that entrepreneurial spirit and you have that bug, you look at everything that way. I mean, we laugh about this because my husband's an entrepreneur as well and had his own company for 30 years, and now we work together. But let's say you go to a show or a Broadway show, you just kind of go, tickets are this much, and you're kind of looking at people are in the audience. Or you're walking and you're looking at storefronts and you're like, God, are they really using that? Are they really making the use of their space and their inventory?
Yeah.
It's like, you look at everything that way. It just becomes part of your beingness.
Totally. I mean, it's how Solid Core started. I was in a Pilates class, and after falling in love with the format, I was just like, I know what I'm paying. How many machines are in here? How many classes a day? And I was just like, oh my God, this is my next thing. But you like look at the inefficiencies, like even standing in line at the airport going through security. I'm just like, just give me 20 minutes and I will I will move everybody around in efficiency. And yeah, but you do think, and exactly, it's like, I heard Lewis House talk about that. It's just like, if I sold it and I made all this money, it's like, that's one thing, but I'm really enjoying, which goes back to what I was saying before, of understand what the day-to-day of what you're building looks like. And you have to fall in love with that, because if you love that and you love coaching and helping your teams, like that's the dream right there. The dream isn't like to sell it into whatever. I mean, I understand the part of it, but the dream is to wake up every day and love what you do and who you're working with, and feeling like you're putting your talents out into the world, and you're in the exact right position to be able to execute on your talents and make the impact that you want to make.
Yeah, I'm so there with you. Look, we have our big goals, and I don't actually like to use goals. I like to say commitments. Like, this is what we are creating. We are committed to it. But you can't say, oh, I'm going to be happy once I get there.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out a way, you got to shift how you're working in the company, or tap more into your passion in the business, whatever it is, so that you're happy in the now on the way there, because every day we're living our life. This is our life, not
right
where we're going. Right. So you've got to find a way to bring that joy and excitement in what you do.
Yeah. It makes life so much more fulfilling. I ask some questions to every podcast guest. I'm going to do the same with you, because I love hearing how similar the answers are from all of you entrepreneurs, and then how different some of them are. So Allison, for you today, because this changes, I always like to get people this when they say, oh, that's not who I am. I'm like, just add 2 words to the end of that, of that's not who I am right now, because we evolve and we change and different priorities and things become important to us. So with that being said, when you put your head on the pillow at night, how do you know you've had a successful day? How do you define success for yourself at this time in your life?
For me, defining success is showing up. It's really all about showing up and being the best version of myself. So even if something didn't work out, did I say everything I needed to say? Did I give it the amount of energy that it needed? Did I support in the way that I wanted to? I can't control the outcome, but if I just showed up in, with my intention, I know that it was a successful day. Honestly, Anne, I don't ever really look back on a day and say, was it successful or not? I think, if you're really living in vision and purpose, then every day is exactly how it's supposed to be. I mean,
Yeah.
When I look back, like being here in Mexico, we bought this villa and, we're living a really nice life. But when I look back, I mean, again, single mom, I had no money, all the things. And even the times that were the biggest frustrations or things that, you hit the wall, all the things that happen, that had to happen to get me to make that next decision to get me to the next thing. So
Yeah.
if you're having troubles or challenges in your life, how do you know that that's not supposed to be happening right now? Because that's the culmination of the things that are going to get you to where you want to go.
Yeah. I agree, and I feel really fortunate. Like I wake up happy, every day. I'm really excited to wake up and put my contributions into the world. And it's because I love what I do, and I love the life that I've created for myself. And you help people with scaling, and it's one of my passions, Allison, to try to help people understand they can create any life they want for themselves. Try to shut out the noise of the societal norms. I'm 42. I've never been married. I don't have kids. I've been engaged twice. I couldn't go through with it. They weren't the right people. I'm in a wonderful relationship now. And it's just like, I've made these decisions that work for me. And I'm not afraid to change my mind, to change direction, based off of what new information I might have. And I think so often we get stuck in how we think life is supposed to go, and we're willing to sacrifice our life to make that story true. And I love that scene in Eat, Pray, Love when Julia Roberts is like down on the ground on her knees, and she's like, I have actively participated in every decision that got me here. Like, I will take full responsibility for this, but I now need to take responsibility and get myself out of this. And I think that can happen to a lot of us of, oh my gosh, how did I end up in this position? And it can be a massive wake-up call. So
yeah, taking responsibility is your ticket to freedom. And, it's not about letting other people off the hook. It's actually, realizing, I got myself into the situation. So what am I going to create next?
Right.
And it is a choice. I met my soulmate when I was 42. So that's, and I had so many people telling me, Allison, what you want doesn't exist. Like, you're looking for Mr. Perfect. And, I was, I had been in various relationships that hadn't worked out. And they're like, they were nice people. What's your problem? These are things that I would hear. Or when, at your age, it's just so much harder. And I just refused to listen. I just refused to listen. And I got clear on the vision, really just kept visualizing. That's just a practice that I do, and not settling. And I even set a date for when I was going to meet him, but that could be a whole other interview.
I was going to say we might do some other podcasts, but now you have to tell people, did the date happen? Like, was it in line with when you thought it was going to be?
Yeah, so I set the date. It was like end of June 2005, and I said I would meet him by August 12th. And I even emailed my girlfriends, and I just so that it wasn't, I had accountability, and I met him on August 4th. And I said we were going to get married 1 year later, and we got married on August 27th. And at that point we had never met.
Yeah, that's why I absolutely love that story. And I know there are people out there who think manifesting, and I'm like, guys, it doesn't hurt. There's no harm in it. And when you get clear on your vision and you say these things of what you're looking for over and over again, how can you not think putting that energy and thought and purpose out there is going to in some way, right? At least it's at the tip of your brain. And I always hate when people are like, oh, if it happens, it happens. I'm like, do you ever go into any situation when you say that things work out in your favor? And people take that approach with dating all the time. It's like, whatever, if it happens, it happens. I'm like, I'm very clear on the kind of partner that I'm looking for and the kind of partner that I can be But yes, that is a separate conversation.
Yeah, but it's setting boundaries. And it's the same thing when you're building a team or anybody that you surround yourself with. And I think it's so critical when you're building companies is, you can't be this whamby-pamby, they're okay. They sort of do their job, and you just settle. And you're not going to get to where you want to go. So you have to get super clear, like, what are those non-negotiables?
Yeah.
This is right.
Yeah, it's non-negotiables and it's standards and it's all of that stuff. Yeah, I love talking about relationships. I had a relationship therapist on a couple of weeks ago and I felt like I could have asked him, I don't know, talked for 5-6 hours. Anyway, Allison, where can people find you? And obviously the name of your company, but where can people get in touch with you if that's a thing, or is this the best way through your company if they want to work with you?
Well, you can DM me directly on Instagram. It's my name. And also our website is pinnacleglobalnetwork.com. And you can reach out to us there. If you feel like you're a CEO, if you're in that 7, 8, 9 figures and you're looking to scale your business, you just go to myscalesession.com and you can talk to one of our high-level mentors and see if it's a fit for you or not.
Amazing. Well, congrats on all your success and building a life that you seem to be super fulfilled and happy living.
Yeah, thank you, Anne. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, likewise.